I'm holding a dozen baby alligators right now, and we had over 20 of them dropped off to us, and these guys are about to get their very first meal. I've decided the first meal I'm going to feed these gators is chicken. Now I've cut it up into pieces they can manage, but the problem is it's not moving or trying to get away from them. They don't naturally recognize this as food. Now, eventually some of them may eat some of it, but I need to make sure they all understand it's time for supper. Looking at this little gator, I understand why people would want this as a pet. It is absolutely adorable, okay? And we've got over 20 of these things. I can't keep over 20 baby gators, as tempting as it may be. I've already got some bigger gators at home, but we're gonna have to find these guys homes. So where did these gators come from? Well, these gators actually came from the wild. See, somebody saw a gator's nest hatching and decided to collect all the babies. In the process of trying to sell the alligators, the person was arrested. The gators were seized, turned over to us. Now we have to find homes for all these gators. Now you're probably wondering, well, if they came from the wild and you know where they came from, why can't you just turn them back? The problem with that is these gators will remain with their mother for maybe the first several years of life, because way before they become predators, they become prey. So introducing them to their mom for her to then take care of them doesn't really work very well. So their best option, their only option, is to remain in captivity. But finding homes for this many alligators, that's going to be tough. Finding these alligators homes, the problem is one, there has to be a licensed facility that does education, and two, it has to be a licensed facility, can't even talk, that does education that needs another gator, okay? Some of them already have alligators. Because these gators are so young, they don't really try to attack or even defend themselves. And they can't tell the difference really in my hand and the chicken. So if I used a set of hemostats, maybe they would take a bite. But like this, they're too afraid of my big hand coming close to their face. Now, if I leave the chicken laying here long enough, some of these gators figure it out and realize, oh, this is food, because they see the other gators moving around. But for some of the gators, some of them need a little bit more help knowing exactly what to do. In the wild, the gator instinct would kick in, and seeing prey move around like insects or small fish, that would make the gators want to come in and grab onto that thing and eat it. So to get these guys to eat, the ones that don't want to eat, picking them up and letting the side of their head touch that raw chicken, and kind of makes them just want to grab onto it, which that's how most of these gators ate for the first time. So I've been keeping gators for about 20 years or so. And what I found out is, especially the babies, keeping them together makes them want to compete for food, and really kind of gets them to want to eat. They see their sibling, oh, you over here doing something fun, what are you doing? And they want to go get in on the action. When they grab a piece of food, if it easily fits in their mouth, they usually go ahead and swallow it. But if some of it's kind of hanging out the sides, they know it's just kind of too big. That's when they'll hold on to it and wait for a sibling to come over, grab a piece, and death roll it with them, and rip some pieces apart they can easily swallow. On the side of his jaw, on the top of his jaws, down underneath his jaws, even inside his mouth and his tongue, on his head are 4,000 sensors. Those sensors are called integumentary sensory organs, or you can call them ISOs for short. And those sensors are estimated to be 10 times more sensitive than the human fingertip. That means he can feel better with his head than you can with your hands. That's pretty amazing. And in the wild, what he uses that for is to go after and hunt, because he can actually follow the ripples on top of the water by feel and catch his food. I don't know why, but I love the feel of an alligator's foot. And the front foot of an alligator has 5 toes, but the back only has 4. And the cool thing is, the first 3 toes on each foot are the only ones that have claws. Those last toes don't have claws. And it's thought that they have more sensitivity when walking and, maneuvering through mud and mucky type water. But those first claws, I've seen them use those to scratch themselves with, and actually use their front claws to kind of rip pieces of prey apart as they're holding it in their jaws. So just a really cool, interesting thing about alligators' feet. And perhaps the coolest part is their eyes. Try not to poke you in the eye, buddy, but I want to show this. As he opens his eye, watch right here. He opens his eye right now. Oh, he did it too fast. Let me do it one more time. What he has is an additional eyelid called the nictitating membrane. It's basically like a translucent eyelid. Okay, that kind of looks gross. Either go ahead and open it all the way. That looks disgusting. He's just trying to gross us out at this point. Okay, fix that. Do it again. And don't worry, I'm not poking him in the eye. All you have to do is barely touch the top of his head. Makes him want to close his eye. It's kind of like having swim goggles that protect your eye, but you can still see underwater. And another really cool thing gators can do is in battle with another gator, or when they're trying to catch prey, they can actually somewhat retract their eyeball back down into their skull a little bit, which helps protect their eyes. It's so cool. Gators also have what's called tapetum. Tapetum basically helps reflect light back into the back of the eye, which assists with night vision, so they can see really good in the dark. Now, what that also does is when we shine a flashlight on a gator at night, it makes your eyes appear to glow red, which is really helpful if you're trying to find a nuisance alligator. Why can't we release them back to the wild? Well, one, we don't know exactly where they came from. And two, even if we knew the area they came from, we'd have to somehow introduce them back to their mother, which is probably not going to work. And the reason these needs to be with his mom is because that female gator, she lays a bunch of eggs. The reason she lays so many is most of these gators will not survive to be adults, because something else is going to eat them way before that happens. These are going to mostly become prey before they're predators. So the mom, for the first several years of this gator's life, will protect it. Well, if we released them, they wouldn't have any of that protection. Something would pick these guys off pretty quickly in the wild. So they have to stay in captivity. The problem with these guys staying in captivity with people who are not licensed to have them is when these gators get big, most of them will be released into the wild. The problem with that is once these gators are fed, they start to look at people as food. A lot of these alligator attacks you hear about in the wild are usually from gators that have at some point been fed by people. It's illegal to feed wild alligators. The reason is they start to look at you as food. And when you decide, oh, I want to see him do something, and you throw him some food, you're basically giving him a death sentence, because he will lose his fear of people. He'll start to approach people. That's how alligator attacks can happen, and he'll have to be euthanized. Now, fortunately, we've already got several of these gators already promised out to new homes with people who are licensed to use them for education. That's a really good thing, which means I'm not going to have to keep on feeding these guys much longer, because some of them are going out just this week to their new homes. That's pretty cool. I love these little gators, and they are absolutely adorable, and I see why people would want this little gator as a pet. This little thing's amazing. I love little baby gators so much. Now, fortunately, these gators don't have much jaw pressure, but their teeth at this size are really, really sharp because they don't have much jaw pressure. As they get bigger and as they grow new teeth, the newer teeth, the older they get, become more and more dull. They're bigger, but they're dull. But they don't need really sharp teeth when they're big because then they do have a lot of jaw pressure. That's pretty cool. This gator will actually go through about 3,000 teeth in his lifetime. And at this size, you see why somebody would want one as a pet. I mean, they're precious, okay? These guys are precious. But they're gonna grow. And you know, there's no dwarf alligators. There's two types of alligators in the entire world: the American alligator and the Chinese alligator. So there's big alligators you see in the swamps, or you know, on TV, or down in Florida, Louisiana, even here in Georgia. That's the same gator. These are American alligators. They do get big. They do grow. As they grow, what are you going to do with a big gator? You know, now my biggest alligator is named Seminole. He lives in my front yard. He's about 9 foot long. He was a program alligator like this at one time. And so you have to have facilities to where, as the gator grows, you got to have somewhere to put them, you know? And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of educational facilities don't have that. So it's really hard to adopt these things out to an appropriate place. But we've already got several of them promised out. So this week we have numerous gators already going to homes that are licensed facilities to use them for education that can house these guys properly, which is an awesome, awesome thing.